CAM's advisory board includes some of the most eminent names in the global fight against anti-Semitism. Today, we're honored to have two of them with us to share their leadership insights. UK Special Envoy for Post-Holocaust Issues, Lord Eric Pickles, and former Israeli UN Ambassador Dani Danon. So first, Lord Pickles, how has CAM and its international coalition aided you in your work specifically?
Well, it's been immensely important to us. I think we need to recognize that anti-Semitism is a global phenomenon, and particularly in the age of social media, there are no real borders. There's only a language barrier. And certainly working together with colleagues, special envoys right across the globe, America, Israel, Germany, I think that we've used those contacts to start to triangulate and to start to force down on anti-Semitism within our societies.
Now, I'd like to turn to former Ambassador Danon. Mr. Danon, you spent 5 years as Israel's UN envoy. And based on that experience, what role do you think a group like CAM should fill in the global fight against anti-Semitism?
Thank you, Natasha. It is my honor to be part of the movement Combat Anti-Semitism, and I am very happy to be a member of the board. After 5 years at the UN, I know exactly what is anti-Semitism. I know that you can counter anti-Semitism and you should be ready for it. That's what happened to me when I entered one day the Security Council, and all of a sudden the ambassador of Venezuela actually blamed Israel, blamed our boys and girls, and compared us to the Nazis. I couldn't be silent at that moment. I demanded an apology, and I was very persistent about it until the ambassador apologized. I think today we know that anti-Semitism is all over in the US, in Europe, and it's not going anywhere. We have to fight back, we have to speak up, and that's exactly what Combat Anti-Semitism movement is doing 24/7. In the UN, I realized that in order to fight anti-Semitism, we have to control the narrative. That is why I initiated many events, bringing Judaism into the halls of the UN, bringing innovation and technology. And whenever they blamed Israel, I actually showed them what Israel is doing in developing countries, supporting other nations. And the most important part is being proud about what's happening in Israel. We shouldn't be shy about it. We shouldn't allow them to use Israel as a tool to attack Jews worldwide. We are proud of what's happening in Israel. And I learned also that when you want to fight anti-Semitism, you should use the techniques of judo. Use the strength and the force of your enemy to create momentum. So whenever our adversaries were bringing something against Israel, I actually used it for our benefit, to raise their attention and to explain our opinions. So we should not be intimidated by hate. I'm optimistic that if we will continue to join hands, to work together, we can prevail and we can fight back against those who want to bash Israel and promote anti-Semitism.
Now, Lord Pickles, the past few years were very eventful for Jews in the United Kingdom, particularly with the Labour Party anti-Semitism scandals. Are Jews feeling more comfortable now, or are they still on edge at this point?
The thing about anti-Semitism is it morphs into different aspects. So while it's pleasing to see that Mr. Corbyn is no longer leading the Labour Party and giving thereby some alibi to those with anti-Semitic views, nevertheless, anti-Semitism exists, and it's not just within the Labour Party, who are now lately trying to remove it, but it also is there in all spectrums of society, right, left, and those involved in extreme Islamic hatred. We have the Community Security Trust, and the latest figures in the United Kingdom show that slightly over 1,600 incidents occurred last year. That's an 8% reduction on the year before, but nevertheless represents the third highest incident of anti-Semitism in this country. And I think we've seen tropes develop in kind of new ways, and quite a lot of stuff online in trying to attack Jews and suggest that they've been involved with regard to the pandemic. I think we need to understand that anti-Semitism is an ancient and pernicious form of hatred. And some of the tropes exist because we need to go beyond just the simple view of anti-Semitism. It's about ensuring that people feel safe in their universities or in their work. I've just come from a rally on Facebook where a lecturer at Bristol University, United Kingdom, was suggesting that people who belong to the Jewish Society were working for the Israeli government and seeking to undermine institutions who were critical of Israel. Clearly, a ridiculous thing to suggest. So I think we need to be all the time. We need to be vigilant against the prejudice, not only of anti-Semitism, but anti-Zionist views. Also, I think, cause problems and distress within institutions.
Now, Ambassador Danon, as you observed international anti-Semitism trends from New York, which alarmed you the most?
I found out that the most concerning issue for us today is ignorance. Not only in the streets, not only on campuses, but also in the UN. I realized that many ambassadors were ignorant about anti-Semitism, about the Holocaust. I had the honor to take to Israel more than 100 UN ambassadors. And on the way to Israel, we stopped in Poland to visit the death camps. Elie Wiesel of blessed memory once said that once you enter the gate of Auschwitz, you become a survivor yourself. You become a witness. And when I spoke with many of the ambassadors, for them, they didn't know much about the Holocaust. I was shocked. And the lesson I learned that we have to educate the leaders, we have to educate the educators, those who are teaching in schools, and that's what we should do in our movement. We should focus on the leaders, we should focus on the media anchors, we should focus on teachers, we should try to change the curriculum, and we have to understand that maybe we care a lot about those issues, maybe we know a lot about those issues, but there are so many out there that have no clue about what happened and what can happen. So we have to stay committed to that cause.
Now, Lord Pickles, earlier in the program, Ambassador Kushler raised the issue of a trend that's emerged increasingly during the pandemic. You mentioned it yourself, Holocaust distortion. Have you witnessed this trend in the United Kingdom?
Yeah, it's a depressing and perhaps almost surprising that COVID-19 should be used by scaremongers as a way of attacking Jewish people. I mean, claiming it's almost like a throwback. I mean, in the 13th century in Britain, the Black Death was blamed on the Jewish people. I think in the UK, particularly online, there's been a reference to Nazi propaganda about the eternal Jew and the anti-Semitic legacy that is now echoed from the last century by conspiracy cranks and Jew haters right across the internet. I mean, a few weeks ago, I was quite shocked to see reports from Prague that the Czech Republic anti-vaxxers were pinning a yellow star of David onto their coats, claiming that they were being persecuted in the same way that the Jewish people were persecuted by the Nazis. We also saw anti-Semitic banners and T-shirts with Auschwitz-Birkenau when the US Capitol was stormed in early January. shocking, I think, and abhorrent scenes that underline how anti-Semitism has moved from the fringes to mainstream politics. I think the evidence is all around us on social media, where anti-Semitic abuse is rife, our university campuses, where Jewish students are being confronted with swastikas and the symbols of institutions with Jewish affiliations attacked. So in our streets, we saw in a recent poll that many Jewish people avoid wearing visible displays of Judaism, not wearing a kippah or a Star of David. And I say this as a non-Jew. I believe that Jewish people should be able to celebrate their Jewishness and to be able to wear these symbols with considerable pride. Much of this abuse is rooted in Holocaust denial, distortion, and revisionism, which is increasingly aiming to a foothold in a fundamental undermining of shared understanding of history. There can therefore be no bystanders in the fight against anti-Semitism. We all have a responsibility to see what's happening and to confront it.
All right, well, thank you both for being with us today, and we expect only bigger and better things ahead with your work with CAM.